Hello everybody and welcome to this VirWe webinar where we are covering the updates for the past 3 months, so November, December and January 2021. Now it's a good time to grab a glass of water, a cup of coffee. In the next 30 minutes we are going to take a look at the biggest changes. We're not going to cover all of the updates, but we are going to take a look at as I said, the biggest improvements. We have a lot of things to show. A lot of it is related to historical data or the graphing options in Vista Data Vision. We are looking at time zone. So you have the option to set a time zone both on each site and also on the server itself. Update multiple users, that will save a great deal of time. And also take a look at bulk alarm and how that can be integrated more with real-time displays and historical graphs. So let's just get right to it. Maybe before we start, as always, on the right-hand side, feel free to ask questions. Somebody here from the team will be able to answer you. Also, if you have other questions after this session, feel free to send us an email to support@vistadatavision.com. All right, let's get started. We are going to start to look at the historical data or the trend lines in Vista Data Vision. So let's go into it. We are going to open up here one page of historical data, and the first improvement that I want to show is that when you are looking at a graph where you have it in full size, you have now the option to click here the variable header to deselect all of the variables. So this is a great feature if you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 variables on a graph, but you just want to maybe plot 1 or 2 of them. So instead of clicking each one to deselect them, you can deselect them all at once. So this has been requested quite a lot, so we are happy to have this released. So that's to say, it is only when you have the graph enlarged where you can click the variable header where you can deselect everything and select the variable that you wish to look at. The next item would be here, if we look at the historical data, is that it is now possible to rearrange the pages. So it has always been that they are ordered by alphabetically ordered, but now you can drag and drop the pages in any order that you wish. So back in the days you always needed to have A, B, C or 1, 2, 3 to have them ordered in the order that you wished, but now you can simply use drag and drop to move them in any order that you wish. You can always click here the button at the bottom to arrange them again in alphabetical order if you wish to. So this has also been requested quite a lot, so simple to use and effective to arrange your pages in historical data in any order that you wish. Next item is also connected to the graph. So this can be applied to any graph on a dashboard or historical data. So we are going to take a look at any graph here, and what with this new option is that we can now select or configure the graph to use a logarithmic scale. So if we select that, the time scale, the x-axis, is changed from linear scale to logarithmic scale. Sorry about that. So that is also a great improvement. So just with one click, you can change how the time axis is displayed. As I said, this also applies to the graphs on the dashboard. You have the same option there. Next item, if we are looking at here again the historical data, has actually been asked about here for some time, is the ability to choose a start date on a graph. So in Vista Vision, you can change the scale to look at any time period. You can also use a date picker to choose any custom time period that you wish to look at. But sometimes you want to have the graph start when the project started, for example. So now that is possible. You can do that on each graph. Again, either in the dashboards or the historical data, is that when you are configuring a graph, you have here at the bottom fixed dates. Default is no, meaning it will just use the scale. So if you have 1 week scale, it will look at the last 1 week. But you can choose a start or start and stop. So if I choose here start, I can custom select. So if I wanted to say here my project started here on 3rd of March 2020, you can see this graph actually starts in March 2020. The other graphs are still using this scale. So if you want them all to be configured to all start on March 3rd, you will simply modify them to have the start date on March 3rd. You can also choose start and stop. So if you want to have the graph always just look at specific time period. So this is an excellent tool to have your dashboard or your historical page. All of the graphs have the same start time, but then you are always looking at the latest data, so the graph is always expanding. So that is it for the graphing changes or the changes to the trend lines. As I said, I was looking at the historical data, but if we would go to the dashboard and we are modifying any dashboard here, is that these options, the logarithmic scale, the start and stop date of the graph, are also available in the graph in the dashboards. All right, let's take a look at the time zone changes. So you might ask, why is time zone needed? It is needed to have the data update alarms better. So the server that is running Vista Data Vision is on one time zone, but the data logger and the data might be on a different time zone. So there is a time shift in the data. So to be able to have the data update alarm precise, so if the data is not updated for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours or so, you need to tell the system on what time zone your data is. So it can then calculate how old is the data and then send a data update alarm if the data gets too old. So if we click here the update overview, we can see here one site called Station 4C. It's a dummy site, and in this case it is located in Singapore. The server is located on GMT, so the time difference is 8 hours. I can see the data has been inputted, but I can see the data age is -7 hours and 19 minutes because the data is being inputted like 8 hours ahead of us. How the system works is that the data update alarm would not been processed until this reaches 0. So 0 minutes, 0 hours. So it was not possible to do update alarms for anything shorter than 8 hours because the system would always need to wait until it reaches 0 at least. But now we can, in the system, tell Vista Data Vision where this site is located, what time zone. So if we go here to Setup and simply Site, we open that up in a new tab. We locate our station 4C. It has just here 2 sensors, but now we have the option to configure the time zone. I can simply search here for Singapore, and I'm telling the system it is 8 hours ahead of the server time. I click Update, and now I have set the time zone of this station. If I go back to the update overview and I simply click Refresh, I can see here if I locate station 4C, it has here UTC plus 8 hours. I can also see my data age is only 42 minutes because the data was inputted only 42 minutes ago. That means the data update alarm can also be set to 2 hours or 1 hour or 3 hours. And the update alarms are actually sent at the correct time. So this is a big improvement. If all of these sites, all of the data lockers and the server are all on the same time zone, then this update, like this modification is not needed. But if you have data and the server not on the same time zone, this is a great tool to improve the data update alarms. Excellent. Let's continue to the bulk update of users. The bulk update of users, if we locate that here, it is allowing you to modify multiple users at a single time. So instead of needing to modify each user and giving them access to a specific owner, you can now modify multiple users at a single time. It is very simple. Simply in the top right-hand corner, you have here bulk edit. If you click the bulk edit button, a sidebar appears and also a check box in front of each user. You can choose the users that you wish to update, and you can apply the update on those users. You have the update to set expire if you want them to, all of these users expire at specific date. Expire means they will not be able to log into the system after the expiration date. You can deactivate them or activate them if they're all deactivated, meaning they cannot log into the system. You can change the default page. So the default page is what they will see first when they log into Vista Data Vision. So if you want them to look at the GIS, for example, you can select that here. You can change the language. So if you want to change the language of these users, you can do that here. Either, for example, changing them to Spanish, or if you have created your own language, you can select that here as well. You can apply the localization, and also you can add a user role. At the bottom here, you have the option to add owners. So this is a great option. So you have a new project coming in. You might have 5 or 10 colleagues that you want to give access to this project. So instead of going in each individual user and giving them access to that owner, you simply select these 3 or 5 or 10 users, and you simply give them access to a specific owner. If we click apply, it will tell us here we are updating here these 3 users. We click update, and now these 3 users are automatically given this access to this owner. So now they see all data connected to that owner, all of the visualization connected to that owner, and it just saves a great deal of time. So again, in the top right hand corner you will find the bulk edit button, and you can, if you want to modify them all, you also have here check all box at the top left corner. So this will, for at least some of our users, save them a great deal of time, as I said, by updating multiple users at a time. Then continuing to the scatter plots. So the scatter plots have been being updated for the past couple of months, been added to the dashboards. Last time we did the option where you can display the regression line on the scatter plots. So if we locate our dashboard, and we just open up here one dashboard, which we are going to add a scatter plot. So we are going here just to the bottom. Might change the height of this box, and we are going to add a scatter plot. In this case, we are just going to be looking at a couple of strain gauges. Going to select this one here and this one here. Going to modify this maybe to, so I have selected two sensors and I'm doing a scatter plot on these sensors. This dashboard is looking at last 2 weeks. So I see the data for the last 2 weeks. It was an option here a couple of months ago to activate regression. So what it will do, it will add a regression line to your scatter plot, and also you have here your equation at the bottom. Maybe increase the size of each dot here a little bit. The options that have been released now with the scatter plot is that you can display the slope and the correlation on the graph itself. So if I activate the slope, you can see in the top left hand corner I will see the slope and my value. I can change the label of my slope if I wish to, and I also can add a multiplier. If I want to, I can also display the correlation. If I activate that one, it will be displayed here right below the slope. You can also choose one or another. I can also change the label of my correlation if I wish to, and I can decide if I want to display it as a value or a percentage. The final option here is that I can simply choose in which corner I wish this information to be displayed. That is maybe connected to how your data is, so where you actually have space on your scatter plot. So if I wanted to change this to bottom right, the data will, or information would be displayed on the bottom right corner in our scatter plot. If I click apply and update, I can here take a look at my dashboard. If I scroll to the bottom, I will see here my scatter plot. I will see here my slope and correlation as well. And this is then for the last 2 weeks. I can, as always, change my scale to, let's say, last month. The data will be fetched, the scatter plot will be updated with more data, and the slope and the correlation will be updated as well. So now we're looking at 1 week of the data, and it can be changed to 2 months, 6 months, and so on. Let's continue, the last item that we are going to cover today are the bulk alarms. So the bulk alarm, as I mentioned last time in our last webinar with last updates, is the bulk alarms will give you the possibility to have more than 2 alarm limits in one direction. It can also let you have like only alarm limits in one direction but not in the other. So if the sensor reaches limit 1, 2, or 3, then you are doing specific alarms. The bulk alarms are designed where you have a limit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 limits, and you are selecting multiple sensors that have that limit. So instead of needing to configure each sensor at a time, you can actually set the limits and choose multiple sensors to have those limits. So if you take a look at the bulk alarm, I am simply going to take a look at this here at the bottom. I have set here 3 alarm limits. So if the data reaches 5 or higher, it is attention. If it reaches 10 or higher, it's alert. And if it goes above 15, it's emergency. I have in this demo only selected 3 sensors, so simply sensor 1, 2, and 3, but you could obviously have 10, 20, 50, 100 sensors connected to this bulk alarm group. You can easily select more limits. So if we had here 20 or 30, we can also add more limits. As always with the alarms, you are simply configuring the contact group, which group should receive this alarm. You can add repeat. So if it's a critical alarm, we could repeat it every 30 minutes. And we can also set delay. A delay is the sensor needs to be in alarm state for X minutes of time. And if it's still in that alarm state after, in this case, 60 minutes, then the alarm is triggered. So this is done to filter out all bad data, which we're just having maybe one bad reading, and the data is then going to a normal state. So we are just going to click Save. What I want to show you, maybe before we take a look at the real-time display, is the alarm types. You can create your own alarm type, so you can have different alarm types for different projects. So in this case, we are using here the webinar owner, and we are having these 3 alarm types: attention, alert, emergency. I see the attention is here in rank number 1, so it's the lowest alarm. Alert is number 2, and the emergency is number 3. I also see the colors going from vague yellow to an orange to a red one. I could easily add other limits if I wanted to. And as I said, you can have different names and different colors for different projects, and just selecting different alarm types in the bulk alarm setup. So let's take a look at the real-time display. So we have here a project or a real-time display where I have a couple of data groups. And you might see here in the bottom left corner is that we have a data group simply called bulk station. We have here sensor 1, 2, and 3. And what I have done before this webinar is I actually manually changed the data. So sensor 1 is reaching the first limit, sensor 2 is reaching the second limit, and the sensor 3 is reaching the emergency limit. To activate to display alarm colors on the real-time display, we simply go to General, and we have here Display Alarm Status. I will simply activate it, and we can see right away is that sensor 1 is the vague yellow, sensor 2 is orange, sensor 3 is red, because they have reached those limits. So if we are looking at the real-time display, sorry about that one, here we are going to, where was that one? Is that we see here our alarm limits are being displayed on the real-time display. Another update that we were just doing is that now it is also possible to display the alarm or the bulk colors on navigation buttons. So if I have here a different real-time display and I go to navigation, this navigation button is actually going to the real-time display where we had the bulk group, where we had sensor 1, 2, and 3. And I have simply activate display alarm. That means that this button here, overview map, will always show the highest alarm color on the real-time display, which is on connected to that navigation link. That means if we go here to this cross section, I have here map overview. It is red because the highest alarm on this real-time display is actually red color. If the highest alarm would be orange or like alert, this button here would then not be red, but it will be orange. So it's great to have an overview real-time display. You have a lot of real-time display underneath it, and you will just see the navigation buttons changing colors to indicate the highest alarm on each real-time display underneath. Another option to display the bulk alarm limits are, we are going here to historical data, and we are going to, let me see here, not this one, is that I'm going to dashboard, sorry about that, and I'm going to a dashboard I just created with one battery on it. This battery has been added to a bulk alarm group, and if I configure my graph, I can actually open up here my variable, and I can also display the limits. Here, this group only has two bulk limits. We have here at 12 and 11. The 12 limit is pink, the 11 limit is red. But Vista Data Vision is automatically grabbing the alarm limits from the bulk alarm, also the colors, and displaying it on the graph. So now you have the option to display the alarm limits for the bulk alarm, both on the real-time display, but also on the trend lines. So that is it for today. We have been covering the updates and improvements for the last 3 months. A lot of it was connected to the trend lines, where we had the option to toggle all variables on and off, the ability to reorder pages, the big update to be able to define start and stop date of graphs, and also the time zone update, which will make the update alarm much more effective. So we have another webinar coming up in a couple of weeks' time. We will send email about it and then display it on our social media. But please follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/Vista Data Vision, and also on LinkedIn and Facebook to stay up to date with latest development. As I said, if there are any questions that you wish to ask after this webinar, or any question in general, want to set up a one-on-one session with our specialist, send us an email to support@vistadatavision.com, and we will gladly assist. Until next time, take care.